Midfielder is injured. They've rested players for this one, and their goalkeeper has been left out because he's been mentally affected. Have they lost the psychological battle before they even take to the field? Let's find out. Sports performance and resilience specialist Jamie Smart joins us in the studio. Thanks a lot for coming on. Let's start with this point about their goalkeeper, Wojciech Szczesny. Arsene Wenger saying in the build-up to this one that his goalkeeper has been mentally affected by the number of games he's had to play. What does this say to you?
Well, here's the thing, and I should explain. I don't just work with sportsmen, I work with businesses and individuals right across the board, because the principles that affect performance are the same. From the playing field to the boardroom to the bedroom, it's the same principles that affect them. And so the only thing that can affect a player's performance psychologically is their thinking. So, for instance, we've got one player who's been goalkeeper in a bunch of games, and he says his psychology is affected. We've got another goalkeeper who's been a player in a bunch of games, and he's thriving on it. The only thing that can be affecting his performance psychologically is his thinking. And the reason I can say that with confidence for everybody is that the only thing that ever stops us having a high level of performance in any aspect of life is the mistaken belief that we're feeling something other than our thinking in the moment. And it looks like that, like players who have got relegation matches coming up. If they feel under pressure, it looks like they're feeling the match, but they're actually feeling their thinking. Just like a player who's got a free and clear mind, and he's out there playing with all his heart. He's feeling his thinking as well. If he doesn't have it on his mind, it's not going to be causing a problem.
So Arsene Wenger, well, he's always, hasn't he, been the professor. He's known as Arsene Wenger. He's dealt with many situations in his time in very varying conditions, hasn't he, Arsene Wenger? As far, Jamie, as taking a player out of the firing line and giving him a bit of time to recoup and rehabilitate mentally, is that always a good strategy, or is it best to just keep them in the firing line?
Well, I can't tell you a single strategy that's always going to be a good strategy. So you take one player out of the firing line, he's lying, he's sitting on the couch, he's thinking about it all the time, his condition's getting worse. You take another one out of the firing line, he's got a clear head, or she's got a clear head. The thing is, when you've got nothing on your mind, you're free to give your best. The title of my book that's just come out is called Clarity, and it's basically all built around that fact that if a player's got nothing on their mind, they're going to play well. And if they've got a head full of superstitious thinking, they're going to play badly. Not just players, every field of performance. Public speakers, someone speaking on the news, they got a head full of thinking about their family or the match that's coming up or whatever. They're not going to deliver a good result.
Let's stick with that thought about having a lot on your mind. Barcelona became the first team last night to overturn that 2-goal deficit to progress to the Champions League. How much does psychology play in the overall result? Because obviously going into last night, a lot of pressure on them to turn that round.
For sure, and just like a rich, nourishing soil is what allows a tree to grow and be strong, rich, nourishing psychology is what allows a player and a team to deliver a good result. It's always going to be, you can think if someone's psychology is to pot, they're not going to play at their best. And if someone's psychology, if they've got a free and clear mind, if they're not bound up and they're thinking about next week or last week or next month or next year, they're going to deliver a good result.
What about having Lionel Messi on your team? Obviously that's going to be, a strong card for you going onto the field. But in terms of a player's mentality when they're about to face Messi, how would you prepare players for that?
The best gift that I could give a player who's going to be facing Messi or any super strong player is to have nothing on their mind, because the only thing that can get in their way when they're facing a player with that strength is they're thinking about, what if it goes wrong?
Just here in this footage, and we saw Milan's players last night trying to foul Messi towards the end. Is this to you a sign of loss of control, lack of discipline? just frustration setting in for them?
Well, it's a sign that they're bound up in their thinking. You know, everyone knows that's not how you play. And so if they're falling into that, it's because they're bound up in angry or anxious or insecure thinking. Let's call it insecure thinking. Someone who's pulling moves like that is like a bully at school. They're insecure, bottom line.
Can you use those secure thinking? I hear what you're saying about having a clear mind and having nothing on it, but can you use things on your mind to a positive? I'm thinking about Barcelona. Their coach, Tito Villanova, has been suffering from cancer. He's been sending them inspirational messages from where he's been receiving treatment in New York. Their mind is full of that. Can they use that as a positive and say to themselves, right, we're going to go out and do this for Tito Villanova? Is that a positive way to use things on your mind?
Oh, it could be, but here's the thing. When they're on the pitch, thinking about him in his hospital bed isn't going to help them. It may be useful in getting them out there, but the only thing that's going to help them deliver a high performance is being in the moment. You know, I remember watching, I think it was Euro 96, Gaza pulled this extraordinary shot, like sort of flipping up in the air. There's no way he could have been thinking a single thing while he was doing that. No way.
Against Scotland. Oh, yes, I remember it well. I think
Incredible.
I think the Scots might as well. That's the difference, so they'll have that on their mind now. Interesting, because from what I hear you saying, is actually the manager's halftime team talk counts for nothing. Because you want them to go out there with a clear mind. He'll be giving them all these instructions. They'll be going out there thinking, I've got to drop back on the winger. I've got to send him onto his left foot. Oh my goodness. Well, actually, you want him to be clear.
Well, I think that's a great point. But here's the thing. The manager's team talk, if it gets his players more connected with who they really are, just to take a quick detour, there's these things I call the 8 deep drivers behind high performance. And they're behind high performance for a manager, they're behind high performance for a player, they're behind high performance for everyone. It's things like authenticity, it's things like resilience, it's things like clarity. And if the manager is coming from that place, if he's not bound up in his superstitious thinking when he's giving the team talk, then he's going to impact those players and he's going to get them out of their heads and out onto the pitch. If his halftime talk gets them more into their heads, they're going to be going in the wrong direction. So I can't give you a single thing that's the right thing to do. It's all about where you're coming from.
Is that why, in some ways, Jose Mourinho is considered such a genius? Because what he does is he takes the heat off the team. Quite often he'll go and sit in the dugout before the players come out, so he gets the abuse. Mm-hmm. He will come out after a match and say something outrageous so that the journalists don't analyse too much what's gone on during the game. Those little tricks, is that what you're talking about?
That's one way of doing it, but I don't want to say it's never the right thing to put the heat on, because in some situations it is. The manager who's connected with their wisdom, who's connected with who's got a clear head, they know what to do. This is the thing. When you've got nothing on your mind, when you get clarity, you know what to do in the moment. When you got a lot on your mind, you don't know what to do in the moment. So the key is to get clarity.
We spoke about Wojciech Szczesny and Arsene Wenger's situation with him. What about Wayne Rooney, who was dropped for the biggest game of Manchester United's season last week? How does that affect a player's mindset, and maybe a player that considers himself the main man at the club?
Well, the effect's going to be this. If he makes a bunch of meaning from it and gets insecure about his situation, then he's going to feel insecure. If he's just like, well, that's just the name of the game. Some games you play, some games you don't. Sometimes you get dropped, sometimes you don't. Then he'll be fine with it. His well-being, his security, his confidence going forward is going to be 100% a reflection of his thinking.
So, another story doing the rounds here, Paolo Di Canio potentially on his way to Reading to be there. He's known as vivacious, loud character. He's always stalking around on the touchline. He's almost a sideshow spectacle as well. He's part of the entertainment. What does that say to his players? And what does that mean when he perhaps steps up to the Premier League? Can he still do those things on a higher stage?
With Di Canio, it's all going to be about where he's coming from. So the things that work for him might not work for someone else, and the things that make sense to him in his current role may not make sense when he steps up to the Premier League. But it's all about those deep drivers again. One of the things, if you watch Di Canio, he's clearly passionate. He clearly believes in what he's doing. So there's authenticity there. There's clarity there. If you look at someone who's not got those qualities, who's not connected with it, they could do all the same things as Di Canio, but they're not going to get the same result because it's not an expression of who he actually is.
But how exactly does that? I mean, we've seen some of the clips there, and he's showing his emotion. How does that inspire your team?
Well, the funny thing is, it's like the halftime talk. If it's coming from somewhere real, and you have a connection with your players, and your players can feel that connection, and you have clarity, then your players are going to connect with that. They're going to feel that connection. They're going to feel that spirit, that team spirit. So if it's real and they're connected with it, he's got that connection with his players, they'll be lifted by it because they'll have less on their mind. Again, if it's giving them more on their mind, they're not going to play well. If they get clarity, they're going to play better.
Jamie, I want to play a bit of fantasy football now. I want to put you in charge of a combination of Aston Villa and QPR ahead of the big game at the bottom of the table. Both teams know they have to win this. I'm going to be your player. Rachel is going to be your player. Here we are in the dressing room. Before we go out for this game, give us your team talk.
The team talk for you guys would be, because here's the thing. If I know each of you, it may be something different or hitting on different things for each of you, because what I'm going to be wanting to do is connect with your passion for the game and to find a way to get you out there without anything on your mind, to let you know that like have you ever seen in when we're doing the Olympics and they interview people when they just won the gold medal, and they'd say, what were you thinking about while you were out there? And they'd be like, nothing. You say, well, what about the crowds? Did that really help you? Like, didn't really notice them. It's like, well, what about what happens next week? Was that on your mind? No, I didn't really notice it. The players and medalists the people who didn't win a medal, they had a head full of thinking. They're saying, oh, I was thinking about how I lost last time. So what I want to be doing with you guys is getting you out there without anything on your mind, taking the pressure off you, getting you out there. It'll sound so cheesy, but getting out there and enjoying the game. Because when you've got nothing on your mind, you're free to give your best. And when you've got a head full of thinking, you're just the same as everyone else.
Fascinating. Jamie, alas, we've run out of time. We could have spoken forever. My mind was cleared when we were talking to you. Fantastic to hear you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.